ગમતું મળે તો ગુંજે ના ભરીએ, ગમતા નો કરીએ ગુલામ. If you get something, then don't pocket it. You spread it. Indian businessman is like modern day Abhimanyu. Now, how can Abhimanyu win if he's fighting both Kaurav and Pandav? That didn't happen in Mahabharata. How can it happen in this Bharat? Our Abhimanyu is born in Chakravyuh. He doesn't go there by choice. Moment he became entrepreneur, he is in Chakravyuh. What Chanakya mentioned, Sam, Dam, Dand, Bhed. We'll have to use all the four things to ensure that we become successful in new technology.
What is your philosophical relationship with money? What is money?
We were fighting for roti, kapda, मकान. तो हमने कभी इसके बारे में सोचा भी नहीं और सोचा तो औकात भी नहीं थी कि हम उसे इम्प्लीमेंट कर सकें. Now we are 5th largest economy on the way to become 3rd largest economy.
What's happening to the markets in India today? Where are they expected to go? Namaste and welcome back to the Rising India podcast. I am Gautam Chikermane, Vice President at the Observer Research Foundation. Our guest today calls himself as a student of the market. Over the next 2 hours, I'm hoping to turn this student into a teacher and get him to deliver a masterclass on economy and investments. Our guest was born in a chawl in Mumbai. He lost his father when he was 9 years old. His mother did odd jobs but ensured her children focused on their studies. Till his college, he studied on scholarship with what he calls the blessings of his teachers. In class 10, at age 15, he started working to support his mother. He did his chartered accountancy as it was the cheapest professional degree. He studied in the passageway of the chawl he lived in and later in libraries on borrowed books to clear his exams. He passed his CA with the first rank and started his professional journey. He joined the financial world and then worked for the ICICI Group. In 1997, he joined the mutual funds industry through Franklin Templeton and learned everything about managing trust and scale. This was a time when private mutual funds had just been allowed through the Mutual Funds Regulation of 1996. Before that, there was only public sector funds or Unit Trust of India. For more than a quarter century since then, he has enabled Indian and global investors to make money through investments in debt, equity, and real estate. Today, he is the managing director of Kotak Mahindra Asset Management Company and a part-time member of the Economic Advisory Council to the Prime Minister. You have watched him on TV giving perspective on markets. You have read him in newspapers and magazines where he provides grounded insights. And now he is here for a deeper and wider conversation. Welcome to the Observer Research Foundation, Mr. Nilesh Shah. Thank you for joining us on the Rising India podcast.
Thank you, Gautam, for having me over here.
So, before I start, 1992 was the time, 1991 and 92, both. I joined the workforce in 91, you joined it in 92. And the Sensex in both our times was around 2000. Today it has crossed 80,000, a 40-fold increase in about 30 years. I just want to track this journey with you, this journey of India. All of us at that time had our own struggles. And suddenly came this the Statement on Industrial Policy 1991, which changed everything. And within 5 or 7 years, the mutual fund industry was up and running. What happened? You were in the center of this change. What happened then?
So essentially, Gautam, when we started our career or before that, the period, what we can call was a dark age. Growth was low. Aspirations were low. And we were basically moving from one crisis to another crisis. 91-92 was the first period where India started liberalizing, albeit at the bottom of the crisis. But then, aspirations came, constraints were removed. And post 1990, I think we always saw India which was full of hope. Not that crisis didn't come, but there was always aspiration and hope. I think the biggest change pre 90 and post 90 is this factor of hope and aspiration.
Do you think it continues today? For instance, a lot of us who came from very average households, lower middle class households, found that reforms made spaces for us to express ourselves. Overnight, there was a demand for managerial talent, there was a demand for writers, there was a demand for technicians, scientists, economists. And we just had to be there at the right time, and all tides took us out. It's not that I'm exceptionally brilliant or you may be. I'm certainly not. It's just that the high tide of reforms carried all of us. Between what happened in 91, 92 and what's happening in 2024, do you see some changes? Sometimes I feel as though it's a 1991 moment again in 2024. Do you feel like that?
So while, we all benefited from the rising tide, but our mentality was still anchored or grounded in what I will say is we never believed in ourselves. If a foreigner came and told us something, we thought it was gospel's truth. In 2024, the young Indian doesn't care for anyone. He is willing to take it right into the middle and fight it out. I think in some sense, if we see Indian cricket, one before Saurav Ganguly was giving a lot of respect and be kind of fearful of the opponent. But post him, we started taking opponent right in the middle of the fight. If they were sledging, we gave it back. If they were preparing pitch which was suitable to their bowlers, we did the same thing. In some sense, prior to that, we had Gavaskar, technically capable, but quote unquote not athletic. Now we have athletic Gavaskar, technically as capable, but as competitive and as athletic. I think between 91 and 2024, that's the change. India moved from Gavaskar to athletic Gavaskar. I think if one has to really measure that, a counterpoint will be we were working hard, not necessarily smart. Today's generation is working smart and hence they need not work as hard as us.
Final question there. In the first 44 years till 1991, our economy grew by 6.5% on a dollar adjusted, on a dollar denominated and nominal rate of 6.5% per annum. From 1991 till 2021, we rose by 8.5% per annum, same dollar denominated and nominal. Where do you think, so our generation gave us the 2 percentage points extra of growth, where we are at close to 4 trillion today. Where do you think this generation is going to take us over the next 30 years?
If we take the hard choices, then the next generation should be able to add another 2%. Provided we are willing to take those hard choices.
10.5%.
It is possible, but we can't take it for granted. We'll have to work towards it. For example, you have written a fantastic book on how many constraints our entrepreneurs face. Now, I'm just saying this from my memory, but there are about 26,000 compliances which can put an entrepreneur behind the bar. Are we needing it? There are laws like if you don't provide spittoons in factory or if you don't clean spittoons. Now, who uses spittoons? Those days are gone, but the laws are here. You have to maintain medical history of your canteen cook. You have to whitewash your canteen wall. You have to clean your toilets. You have to provide so many toilets per worker. I mean, do we need to be so prescriptive? So there are certain hard reforms which we'll have to do, which will unleash our businessmen. To me, the favorite example is that Indian businessman is like modern day Abhimanyu. Abhimanyu moved into Chakravyuh on his own wish. And while he was fighting, he was always hopeful that my cousins, uncles will come and rescue me, support me. Our Abhimanyu is born in Chakravyuh. He doesn't go there by choice. Moment he became entrepreneur, he is in Chakravyuh. And not only he fights Kaurav, which is the markets and dumping and raw material price movement and sales and so on and so forth, but also the Pandavas, like the kind of law I mentioned. Now, how can Abhimanyu win if he's fighting both Kaurav and Pandav? That didn't happen in Mahabharata. How can it happen in this Bharat? If we take hard choices, this generation will add another 2% to what we have achieved.
Fantastic. I love your hope. Okay, so I have only 7 questions for you. That's the good news. The complex news is that each of those questions has several sub-questions. So let's jump into the deep end, which is that what's happening to the markets in India today? Where are they expected to go? I know neither you nor I would like to answer this question. I'm asking this question on behalf of millions of investors.
So our markets have witnessed Triveni Sangam of fundamentals, flows and sentiment together, which is why it is one of the best performing market. Between 2010 to 2020, corporate India's profit growth moved from 3 lakh crore to 4 lakh crore. Over 10 years, 33% growth, less than savings bank account. No wonder markets didn't go anywhere and the return was mid-single digit. From 2020 to 2024, profit multiplied almost 4 times, from 4 lakh crore to 15 lakh crore. Undoubtedly, on that strong fundamental, market cap also went up. On top of it, now our market is driven by domestic liquidity. In the same time period, domestics are owning almost 10% more than what foreigners are owning. And sentiment towards India by and large has been positive. So our markets have witnessed one of the most broad-based rally backed by fundamentals. Earlier we have seen rally which were driven more by liquidity or by sentiment, but not necessarily backed by fundamentals. Now at this point of time, we are one of the most expensive market in the world. Yes, fundamentals, liquidity and sentiment justify those valuation. But then you are now like Rohit Sharma or Virat Kohli. When you go out to bet, people expect you to hit 4s and 6. People expect you to score a century. We carry the burden of expectations. If we meet those expectations, returns will continue to come. But if you disappoint, then there will be a correction. My feeling is that for an investor, if they moderate their return expectation, what you saw in last 5 years was about 21% return. That's not going to happen in next 5 years. You have to moderate your return expectations significantly. You will still make real return. You will still make better return than most other instruments.
In terms of valuation, there is generally among wise people that there is a revert to mean. So our general PE ratio, which is price earnings multiple, has been in the range of about 14, 18. Sometimes even 18 is considered expensive.
Yeah.
Today we are standing at 24. Now, do you see corporate earnings justify a 24? I'm talking about the market, the Sensex PE. Do you see corporate earnings growth justify such a high PE?
So Gautam, one thing is the change in composition of Sensex or Nifty. By and large, B2B businesses having lower valuation have moved out. And B2C companies with higher valuations have entered. Titan, Trent and so on and so forth. Second, government companies by and large have gone out and private companies have entered. You adjust for this, then our P ratio is reasonable. It's not cheap, it's not very expensive, it's reasonable. Are there sectors where P ratio looks high on the much higher side? Of course, capital goods, infrastructure, real estate, defense stocks, low floating stock counters, their valuations are looking on very, very higher side. But there are many sectors in banks, telecom, FMCG, IT, pharma, auto, cement, where you still have fairly valued stocks provided your return expectations are moderate. If you are expecting last 5 year kind of return, then these are not the valuations where you can enter.
So what sort of returns should people expect from the index? Not everybody is a stock investor or has the capability to buy and sell stocks the way you do. But through you, as funds or as an index, I think index is the best benchmark.
Yeah.
What are we looking? What kind of returns should an Indian investor expect?
So my thumb rule is that if our inflation is going to be in the range of 4 to 5%, equity market is unlikely to deliver more than high single digit or low double digit return. Now we are coming at a very, very fair valuation. So between high single digit to low double digit, that's the kind of return possible on a sustainable basis.
So let's say 12%.
Whether it's 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, it all depends upon from what point to point we measure.
So this high growth that you're talking about, I'm not even talking about 10.5. Even if we continue with 8.5, the general sense is GDP growth plus inflation plus risk premium. That takes it into 15 to 17% expectations. Why are you limiting it to 8 to 12?
So one, as a fund manager, we have always seen under promise and over deliver. Number two, we are entering at valuations which are reasonably pricing in all this scenario. Had the valuation 20% cheaper, your returns would have been 20% higher. But we are entering at a stage where a lot of the good news is already into the prices.
So India's story is factored in. The Morgan Stanley indices increase has been factored in. The debt money that is expected to come has been factored in. Now it's pure merit growth.
All the good news are factored in.
Okay.
None of the bad news are priced in. And most importantly, from here onwards, will we expand our P ratio? Looks unlikely. The returns will have to come from earnings growth, and which should sustain, as you mentioned, at real GDP growth plus inflation level.
Okay, the other related question, now let's go one step below, is that, so there is stock markets, there is earnings. Now I'm going one step below that, which is capital expenditure. So far, over the past 3 to 5 years, we have seen the union government drive capex. State governments have somehow been coming, but different states have done differently, but at an aggregate, they are marginally behind the union government. When is private, for growth to happen in the markets, so that earnings happen, so that markets rise, you need private sector capital expenditure. There are a few green shoots that I see, but how are you seeing it when you sit as a fund manager? Then how do you see this private capital expenditure coming?
So one, there is no denial to the fact that private capital is subdued right now. But what are the reasons for it? One, a lot of expenditure which is happening on, let's say, computers and software, earlier it was getting capitalized. Now most companies are writing it off. They are writing it off because they are making lots of money and there's no need to capitalize. When your profit moved from 3 lakh crore to 4 lakh crore, you wanted to capitalize lots of things. When the profit has moved from 4 lakh crore to 15 lakh crore, you are saying let's write it off and get the depreciation benefits. Second challenge, companies have realized that this is the age of becoming competitive. There are chemical companies which are today facing huge challenge from China because they are just dumping chemicals. Now, will they go and do capex? No. They are re-engineering their plant to increase their capacity by 15-20%. This debottlenecking, re-engineering or brownfield expansion, whichever way you call it, has increased India's chemical capacity by 15 to 20% in many companies without putting a single naya paisa of capex.
So productivity of capital is rising.
Is rising when there is a pressure. This chemical company could have done on day one also. No, but they are doing it when China is dumping goods and hitting them hard.
So a clear case where competition actually helps capitalism.
Absolutely. The third thing which we are seeing is that the second generation of entrepreneur is not necessarily coming in the same business as of the parent. I met, and I'm talking about unlisted companies, where diamond polishers kids want to go into chef and music. They're running restaurant and music classes. Now, this is a real challenge for us. The entrepreneur is not going to expand unless until they see their next generation coming and joining their business. The other interesting thing which is happening.
But one sec here. So they may not expand the diamond business, but they can expand into the restaurant business. But the capital remains, the capital requirements continue. So it adds up.
So again, the amount of money which you can put into, let's say, iron or steel business or a cement business versus what you can put into restaurant or a music classes are very, very limited. The other interesting thing which we are seeing is that many of these corporates are witnessing huge technological disruption, and which is why they are deferring their capex decision. The guy who first went into lab-grown diamond is a bankrupt today. Because as the new machines came, the cost of making lab-grown diamond dropped dramatically. So if you move early into technology, there is a problem. Put all these things together, despite lower leverage, despite higher capacity utilization, despite equity and debt money available for investment, we are seeing that investment is getting subdued.
Are you worried about that?
Undoubtedly.
Now, see, as economists, we see a direct correlation between private capital expenditure and job creation and wealth creation. But from the financial side, if you can deliver the same thing through greater capital or labor or entrepreneurial efficiencies, it comes to the same thing. So are you concerned about...
Undoubtedly, Gautam. If our entrepreneurs are not going to invest, the future growth rate cannot sustain at current level. Second, if only the big business houses are going to invest, in a country of 1.44 billion people, that's not sufficient. It's going to create inequality, and it's not going to create a growth which is aspirational for everyone. So we have no option but to support our Abhimanyu. We have no option but to encourage our Abhimanyu. How do we do it? One, I'll recommend everyone to read your book and ensure that we support our Abhimanyu by removing all those criminal liabilities from his back. As an entrepreneur, let him face only the Kauravas. Why should he be fighting Pandavas? Number two, we'll have to invest in technology. There was a time when we were providing innovation to the world. We were making steels which was not getting rusted as it's witnessed in that Loh's thumb. We were building ships which were traveling to Sumeria and Bali and everywhere else. Today, are we a leader in technology? In services and software, yes, but how many software products we have created? We are now taking steps in semiconductor, but otherwise we were not there. 10 years back, I had mentioned somewhere that India missed two things. One, fabrication, second, fermentation. Fabrication was referring to chips and fermentation was referring to APIs where we are dependent upon China. Now today, if we can invest into technology and provide that to our entrepreneurs, I think investment cycle will pick up. People have money, but they don't have technology. Markets can give money, but they will give to the companies which have technological edge. And which is where in this vote on account and budget, 100,000 crore funding for supporting research and development is a step in the right direction. If we can develop technology and provide it to our entrepreneurs to scale it up, I'm sure capex cycles will take off in a right manner.
We'll come to technology soon. So I want to change the question now. We are close to $4 trillion. And I think what I have observed is every $1 trillion of GDP, there is a shift in the way we think about several things, including doing business. Also, 4 trillion now is a large enough scale. How should investors look at this scale? So one part is the entrepreneurs. Do investors need to rethink the way they invest, given that there is a new scale, and that scale is coming at a furious speed? It's not only just the GDP, it's the number of people who are investing. It's the number of people who have greater aspirations. It's the number of people who are now spending on education, for instance, healthcare. So is there a way that people need to rethink the way they look at investments given the changed scale? Can we continue to expect from the markets what we got at $270 billion in 1991 at a $4 trillion economy today?
So for a broad market, that may not be possible because at $270 billion, we were inflationary economy. Now there is much less inflation. So your nominal returns are bound to fall, even though real returns may remain the same. But will there be segment where there will be as much opportunity today as we had at 90s to $270 billion GDP? Answer is undoubtedly yes. Below $2,000 capita, we were roti kapda makan economy. Above $2,000 per capita GDP, education, healthcare, travel, tourism, entertainment, they will all start taking larger part of our spending. Maybe the next generation will spend more rather than save more as they are financially more confident. So there will be opportunities which will be as exciting as it was there in the 90s at $270 billion GDP. And more importantly, the pot which is available is infinitely going to be higher than what was available then.
That's a very good question, and I haven't thought about it, which is that the young people who are spending more will continue to spend and perhaps deliver returns to companies. Do you think, as at a macro level, the space for consumption in GDP will also, as a result, rise at a macro?
So as of today, consumption is already 2/3 of our economy almost. And we have no option but to push both consumption and investments together. If consumption becomes, let's say, 3/4 of economy, will it sustain? Answer is no. If investment becomes, let's say, 1/2 of GDP, that's not fair because we have aspirational population. We are a democratic country, not an autocratic country. Suppressing consumption to that extent will have its own consequences. So we will have to create a perfect equilibrium between investments and consumption, where higher investment leads to higher growth, creates more jobs, creates more consumption, but investment has already created supply, so there is no inflation. It's a very, very fine balance which we will have to achieve.
So you mentioned that new sectors will come up. What are these new sectors that young investors should be tracking, watching?
So one obviously is technology related, from semiconductors to artificial intelligence to machine learning. The second could be, futuristic investments. For example, in defense, tank is now past and drones are the future. Let me just say, for the sake of saying, aircraft may be the past and the missiles may be the future. So futuristic investment. And the third will be probably sectors which are yet going to come based on what technological disruption is coming. I have no idea how AI will come and impact. 10 years back, would I have visualized OTT kind of entertainment? Answer is no. So keep your eyes and ears open. There may be new sectors which will emerge, which I am not able to visualize today. So go for technology, go for futuristic, and keep mind open for something which is coming out.
Last question on markets. Globalization over the past 30 years has helped India in several ways, the most important being reduction in poverty. Now the world seems to be deglobalizing, and new tariffs are coming on various issues or around various products. Me first, America first, China first, India first. So, in this age of apparent deglobalization in several ways, I mean, you can call it clean food, you can call it energy, etc., whatever, however you want to define it. But the fact is that barriers are rising. In this world that's coming now, how does India negotiate and where does India stand?
So, unfortunately for us, we are not going to play on day one pitch like China. We are going to play on a day five pitch where globalization is giving way to deglobalization or protectionism. Interest rates, they are on the way down but will remain elevated compared to, let's say, 2008 era. Liquidity will not be excessive like the past, it will be just adequate. The scale of technological disruption is coming at a much, much faster pace. So for us, the pitch has changed, and hence we must change our betting technique. The biggest advantage for India will be our Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. When we are dealing with people, our history suggests that we are not going there to conquer. We are not a predator nation. Even in the past, when we went to Cambodia, Thailand, Indonesia, and Africa for trade purpose, we didn't go and conquer those countries and suck them out like colonial countries. That we'll have to keep in mind and move forward. Like Y2K was a problem, Indians come and solved at a reasonable price and delivered a perfect solution. We didn't put another bug over there that in 2003 you required us. Because we did that job good, the IT industry came. The world is aging and the cost of Medicare is very, very high. A simple root canal in UK will probably require 1,500, 2,000 pounds. And there may be a 6 months waiting period also. India has the medical infrastructure in terms of doctors, nurses, maybe a little older, but medical equipments. And we can provide all these facilities at a much cheaper rate and in a much faster manner to the world. Now, this is where we can create solution for the world in a competitive manner which is beneficial to us. This is true Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. There will be so many elderly people in Japan, in Europe, maybe in rest of the world. We have many young people. We can provide them those people for serving their need on a, let's say, long-term contract. They are not going to those nations from a citizen point of view. They'll come back to India. But as long as they are there, they'll work and provide support to your elderly citizens. They don't want to deal with robots. They want to deal with a human being and will be able to provide that good, caring human being. We will benefit by solving your problem. That Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam will ensure that on the 5th day pitch, India will bet better than China.
So my second set of questions takes this stream forward. So not only are we looking at deglobalization and hence Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam could be a good strategy, we are also seeing every product, almost every important product become a strategic product. 5G, semiconductors, artificial intelligence, even pharmaceuticals, APIs that you mentioned. In such a world, where is the space for, and I'm not just talking about India, globally, where is the space for commerce when everything is strategic?
So it's a very, very tough question, and I don't think so we have full visibility of how things will evolve. But I think in COVID crisis, what India did was truly remarkable. We not only produced vaccine for us, we also produced it for those countries who didn't have that capability. We took care of our people, but we also took care of the world. That kind of thing where we can be a very, very reliable supplier, one which is not going to take you for a ride, one which will create win-win situation for both of you, both of us. I think that will be the way forward. Today, the pager thing by Israel has shown how vulnerable we are if we import electronics. Now, will every small country be in a position to make those electronics? Answer is no. Maybe India can provide the testing facility provided we develop that capability, or we become a reliable supplier of those equipments, saying that you can trust India, we will not take you for a ride. What can we do? Either a credible testing agency or a credible supplier.
Interesting, yeah. But I just see that, actually I see strategic industries being part of a deglobalization where you don't want to share your technologies, and it's still an emerging story. You will also track it. We will also track it.
So, for example, can India go ahead and say that when you're buying my software, we guarantee you that it will not be weaponized for you, weaponized against you.
That's right.
And we are happy to involve you at construction stage, testing stage, or post-delivery checking stage to give you that assurance that this will not be weaponized against you. Now, obviously, our statements are not going to give confidence to people. Our conduct is going to give confidence. But if we can build that brand, you can imagine what premium that brand will get. Today, whether you buy a Titan watch or a Swiss watch, both will show the same time. But we pay huge premium for that Swiss brand because of the brand and quality and everything associated with it. We need to create a brand India which is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which is reliable supplier, which does not weaponize that supply against you, and hence we become your strategic partner.
Yeah, for the win-win that you mentioned is
Absolutely.
good, because for China, win-win means China wins twice.
You give everything to me, I won't give anything. Or even for that matter, can we enter into oil for wheat or oil for food grain kind of relationship? We will be importer of energy. And there are so many oil producing nations which requires food security. I mean, if there is a, पुराने ज़माने में वो राजाओं के बीच में शादी ब्याह का रिश्ता चलता था. चलो अब शादी ब्याह का ज़माना तो गया. But can we enter into oil for food or those kind of interdependency? As long as there is interdependency, strategic equilibrium will be maintained.
So on China, there is this talk about corporate refugees exiting China, but not coming to India, going to Vietnam or Thailand. Do you see this changing? Is India getting... See, one thing is India wanting something the way you are articulating. And the other is India ready? Are companies happy to come to India? So these corporate refugees, Apple is here, for instance, but the kind of flood that should have happened, given that China has turned rogue, is not happening. And even the companies are sort of not very certain whether they want to come all in.
So, how do we attract companies? One, I have a large domestic market which is likely to become third largest in the world. Have we leveraged that? Answer is no. The day I say that if you manufacture in India and export out of India, you get preferential access to Indian market, a lot of people will come. Number two, we have not even marketed ourselves. For example, every time I meet a global investor, I present them a picture of how Maruti Suzuki's share price has delivered better return than Toyota, Honda, Nissan and Suzuki ex-Maruti combined put together. And they are not aware about it. They don't know that Maruti sells more automobiles than Suzuki worldwide. Now, unless until we go and market our success stories, how will people come? The third thing is, when we talk about Abhimanyu, we don't differentiate between Indian entrepreneur or global entrepreneur. While at the federal level, there is a red carpet for China plus one companies. At the local level, we still have a long distance to cover. I think in Telangana, they introduced permitted, if not prohibited, kind of law. If you don't hear from government within certain specific days, then you assume you have been given approval. Now, those are the kind of steps India has to take to attract global investors, global companies, China plus one over here. And this all best can be illustrated when we can go and showcase a success story. Infosys success story aspired so many IT services company. A success of initial unicorns like Flipkart aspired so many entrepreneurs. We need one success story on China plus one, which is what Apple is, to incentivize, to kind of push other people to come in.
It's been over 2-3 years now. How long do you think we can continue to wait? We may just lose this opportunity, as we have lost several in the past.
Sam Dam Dand Bhed. We have to use all the four techniques. To get China plus one into India, buy, borrow or steal. We'll have to leverage access to our domestic market to push people to come to India. We'll have to improve ease of doing business to ensure that people who come here are having pleasant experience. And most importantly, we'll have to go out and market that, look, when you come to India, your subsidiary company will become bigger than your parent one day.
And in the process of inviting foreign companies and foreign capital, we eased business for our Indian capitals as well. Because
Absolutely.
Frankly, the bureaucrat sitting out there doesn't care what the color of the money is. His job is only to put hurdles. Okay, so coming to 3 mega trends that I see today, and if you know of any others, please join, and how India can play them. One is artificial intelligence. A lot of enthusiasm around artificial intelligence, but the moment we use the word AI, we suddenly start talking about chips, we start talking about NVIDIA, etc. While actually at a very small level, the usage of AI and converting them into businesses is humongous for India. So how do you see this story play out? Do you think there is scale here? Do you think there is money here?
So one, if we see decline of India in the 18th century onwards, it can essentially be summed as we missed industrial revolution. We knew how to make steel, but we couldn't improve further upon it. And, industrial revolution just bypassed us. And then for 200 years, our growth was almost zero. The digital revolution and AI revolution, we can't afford to miss. If we miss that, like industrial revolution, there is no hope for us. And fortunately, a lot of AI revolution is driven by Indian diaspora. Satya Nadella in Microsoft, Sundar Pichai in Google, and so many other Indians are leading that AI revolution. We have to leverage talent in India as well as abroad to ensure that we have our own highway or foundation for the artificial intelligence. If I use other people's foundation, I'll keep on paying the toll charges. And maybe the revenue I will make is of a shopping center on that toll where some people will come to eat and rest. But if I have my own highway, I will be collecting toll from everyone. And can India build that foundation? Can India build that highway and collect toll? Answer is quite plausible. Second, we have enormous engineering talent. We need to move that talent to ensure that it can leverage AI to deliver cheaper, better and faster solution to the customers. The usage of AI, for example, integration into ERP. We had gone and installed ERP with customers. Now I can integrate AI into it. I can ensure that your data remains secured. I can be at the forefront on cybersecurity linked with AI and so on and so forth. My curriculum has to adjust to ensure that my students are equipped with AI tools and knowledge to participate in that revolution. I think India has a fair opportunity to be part of this revolution. As of today, we are likely to be behind US and China by a margin, but we can be far ahead of any other country. And hopefully, we'll be able to close the gap between us and US and China over a period of time if we play this game well.
So let me ask this question from the creator's point of view. Here I am, an AI engineer, a good AI engineer, and the salary that I'm getting to create AI products in USA or in Germany or Japan is a multiple of, same in semiconductors, by the way, which we'll come to very soon.
Yeah.
Why will I, unless I'm an entrepreneur, that's a separate story. Entrepreneurs are totally mad people. They create magic out of nothingness. But let's leave them aside. Let's look for an average guy, the guy sitting out there and coding. Why will I waste my time? Why should I waste my talent on a salary that is 1/10? And because there is no scale, why will I do that?
Undoubtedly. And there will be many Indians who will migrate abroad. But we need thode sarfira log who will stay back in India and build a company. They will be happy to share their prosperity by way of ESOPs with their employees. They will be driven not by wealth creation, but idea of India. एक बहुत पहले सुनील दत्त की मूवी आई थी हम हिंदुस्तानी, जिसमें कुछ गाना था इस प्रकार का, छोड़ो कल की बातें, कल की बात पुरानी,
नए दौर
में लिखे हम मिलके नई कहानी, हम हिंदुस्तानी. वो स्पिरिट चाहिए. And we just need 4 or 5 successful stories. And I read an article of Shantanu Narayan, the CEO of Adobe, who said that if I was born in today's India, no way I will leave Hyderabad to go to US. We need to create that spirit and that ecosystem so that not only the future Shantanu Narayan doesn't go to US, but the existing Shantanu Narayan comes back to India. Now, is it doable? Answer is yes. It is in the realm of our possibility. We are developing startup ecosystem. We have seen some success stories. We just need to support our Abhimanyu so that when that startup founder goes to his batchmate in US, the US guy feels envious saying that, yaar, मैं इंडिया में रहता तो अच्छा करता.
As a lot of them are doing in the non-tech industry. They're almost regretting leaving. Okay, semiconductors. That's another ultra high skilled, ultra strategic industry upcoming. I mean, actually, it's a second life. Semiconductors is not a new story. It began in the 60s, and I think Mr. Khosla was among the pioneers then in America. But now semiconductors have become super technological. I mean, a chip, you can put millions of, and your calculations are in nanos rather than centimeters or inches. This again requires high talent, it requires high investment, it requires high security. Do you think India is ready for, although the government is doing and full marks, in the sense, full support to the government of what it is doing. I'm talking from ground up. So here is a policy framework that there will be subsidies, and it's not unique to India. The world over, from America, China, everything is subsidized, but everywhere semiconductors are being subsidized by the state. So here is the overall policy environment. How do I enter it? How do I benefit from it? And what returns does our nation get through this?
So I'm not an expert on semiconductor side, but these are my observation. We need fabrication facility because it will help us integrate forward as well as backward. Today there are many global capability centers which are designing semiconductor chips in India on behalf of multinational company. Tomorrow employees out of that global capability centers will come out and set up their own design studios. And if I have fabrication facility which will match those design uh, and produce chips which will be used by the world, I will get vertically integrated. Uh, my wife is a doctorate from IIT Bombay, and many years back when she got her PhD, they had gone to US for making presentation of their paper. Her presentation was about capturing images and comparing it with database to figure out what that whole image is. So if I capture part of your face, the software will figure out from the database that this is Gautam. When she presented her finding, the jury was quite hostile. And it was quite painful to see a hostile jury. Later on in the evening, the gentleman came who was part of American military establishment saying that I just couldn't believe your output because the hardware which you are using is much older version than what we are using, and we are not getting the output which you are saying that you are getting. How is that happening? Our hardware was poor, but our software was much better, and hence we were able to derive better output compared to what they were getting. We have our edge, and we have to leverage those edges. The second thing in semiconductor, if I remember history correctly, in the 80s in Punjab, we had a semiconductor
Yes.
chip packaging facility. Now, that's not a semiconductor complex, but we were there somewhere. And the whole factory got burned out. We can't afford that kind of accident. I mean, that one fire put us behind in semiconductor chips by a margin. Till 80s, we were ahead of both China and Korea in semiconductor. We can't afford that. Third, we have to learn from Taiwan. Like, how did they become such a powerhouse in semiconductor manufacturing? It's not a rocket science. They have done few things together whereby by supporting their Abhimanyu, by creating that infrastructure, by providing that education, by collaborating with global companies, they have become such a big powerhouse. And finally, like when America was putting sanctions on China on semiconductor manufacturing, they went and recruited 30,000 people from rest of the world. Some of them were working in semiconductor companies, some of them were retired. They offered them a brilliant package so that they all came and started working in China, and sanctions sab ek baaju pe reh gaya. We will also need that kind of mission critical approach. I think what Chanakya mentioned, Sam, Dam, Dand, Bhed, we'll have to use all the four things to ensure that we become successful in new technology.
The third trend that I'm seeing is on around narratives. And today, a lot of narratives are shaped by private companies. Private companies are non-state actors, or so we believe. But look at the Russia-Ukraine war, and suddenly YouTube, Facebook, Meta have cancelled Russia, an entire country. Today in India, there are several people who are making money on YouTube. Suppose there is some dissonance between India and America. These apparent private companies can become deep state instruments and overnight get out. So India is vulnerable. So that's one point that I wanted to discuss. Related to that, so my question is, why can't India make a YouTube? Why can't India make a Twitter? Why can't India make a Facebook? Well, India tried with Coup. They started that app, decent app, but it's just folded up 2 months ago. So where are we going wrong? Why are we unable to create the new age product? And it's not like it's a young industry. It's now 20 years old. So why is India unable to create these kind of products that enable narratives? I mean, because on the one side and give us strategic strength on the other.
So one, as a country, we are not predatory. We have never focused or thought about such kind of things. If it is not in your thought, it's not going to be in your action. Second, we were fighting for roti kapda makan. तो हमने कभी इसके बारे में सोचा भी नहीं, और सोचा तो औकात भी नहीं थी कि हम उसे इम्प्लीमेंट कर सके. नाउ वी आर fifth largest economy on the way to become third largest economy. But have we started behaving like that third largest economy? Answer is no.
Aren't we still a poor economy? We may be, we are third large, we are potentially third largest because there are 1.4 billion people and you multiply that 2,500 or 3,000, 4,000 per capita income and you get a large number called 4 trillion or maybe 7 trillion by the end of this decade. But are we really, the scale is there at a macro level, you see 4 trillion, but the per capita income is 2,700.
Now, should we look at US dollar per capita income, or should we look at purchasing power parity?
So 8,000, 10,000.
Now, moment we go to PPP basis, we are not that poor. Now, again, when we look at India, I think, outsiders will probably have more respect for us than all of us have for ourselves. I still remember reading one article long back where one of our reporter requested Steven Spielberg, saying that you make such wonderful movie. Why don't you come and make a movie on Ram, Buddha, Krishna, Ashoka, and so on and so forth. And Steven Spielberg replied that an Indian should be making that movie. I can help, I can support, but India's narrative should be told by Indian. Now, we were of that generation where we believed that Steven Spielberg will do justice to story of Ram, not an Indian. वो mentality आज भी है.
नहीं, but so point taken. Now, could it be that the risk capital in India, particularly venture funds, angel funds, pre-IPO funds, is reluctant to think big the way Silicon Valley does? The kind of risks Silicon Valley venture capitalists take is a humongous multiple of what the kind of the Indian venture capitalists, to my knowledge, and I know a few, is still thinking return कब आ रहा है, वो cash flow positive कब हो रहा है, EBITDA positive कब हो रहा है, etc. These are not questions that you ask startups in this day and age. It shows then you might as well put in a steel factory or a shoe factory. If you're talking technology, and I'm not talking just coding, it could be medical technologies, it could be equipment technology, it could be nanotechnologies. If you're putting that kind of money, you should why waste your time or why waste the entrepreneur's time? I think there is an impatient capital at the startup level, which is also a problem, and how do we change it? And second, the scale up somehow is not happening. I thought Coup was a good company. It was a decent product. It wasn't Twitter, but it was a decent product. It's gone.
So if we look at risk capital, there are 18 crore Indians who traded in cryptos and lost money. There are crores of Indians who are trading in F&O and losing money. There are so many Ponzi schemes which keeps on collecting money. And today we read raids on Pearl Agrotech, which had 18 years ago collected 49,000 crore. So, to say that there is lack of risk appetite is going exactly contradictory to what we have seen in this behavior.
Let me question that. I think this is not risk appetite. This is greed, pure greed. I am talking about smart people like you, who could set up private equity tomorrow. Maybe you'd even have a private equity fund somewhere in the Kotak universe. Those people who are finance people, who understand risk, not to be victims of Ponzi schemes or run after the next big thing without knowing a thing about it.
Yes.
But intelligent,
so I completely
intelligent
agree,
capital.
Gautam, कि this was greed and not risk capital. But there is a very fine line between what is foolhardiness or stupidity and what is sound thing. How do I convert this greed into risk appetite. Is it possible? Answer is yes. Uh, if I remember my data correctly, IIT Madras has invested and mentored companies. Their total investment will be few hundred crores. The value they have created is few tens of thousand crores.
5G has come out of there. 6G, they are working on
Absolutely.
6G.
So I have to bring that story to the millions of Indian. They have to say कि ये मेरा विकसित भारत में योगदान है, आप रिस्क लीजिए, मैं आपके पीछे बैठा हूँ. If I remember, there was that World Cup where Sri Lanka, Kalu Vitarana and Sanat Jayasuriya started hitting every baller out of park, and they won the World Cup. Now, before that, every World Cup which Sri Lanka had participated, they had no chance of winning. And what was the model there? पहले 15 ओवर में विकेट बचाओ, 40-50 रन करो, फिर मिडल ऑर्डर दौड़ेगा, इधर उधर 1-2 रन लेंगे, लास्ट 10 ओवर होगी, उसमें चौके छक्के मारो एंड 200 रन कर दो. 200 was a winning score then. Sri Lanka thought that was if we continue to play the way we have played, we'll never win World Cup. Let's change the game. And they said in first 15 overs, we'll score 100 runs. Now, they would have gone and assured both Jayasuriya and Kalu Vitarana, because you go and hit. If you get out, it's fine. Your job will be there. Moment that confidence came, that you can take risk because we are backing you, they won the World Cup. I have to give that confidence to investors that you take the risk, you will make money. Of course, every ball will not be a 4 and 6, but eventually you will go and win the World Cup. I have to create that Silicon Valley kind of ecosystem.
Isn't it about time that it should have happened by now? I think our venture capitalists are still stuck 2 decades behind.
But like a very simple thing, Gautam bhai. Why not we create various classes of risk? So you and I both put 10 rupee along with our cameraman. So 3 of us put 30 rupees. He doesn't want to take risk. So fair enough, you get fixed return. And after our 20 rupees return, then only you have a risk. Chances are that he will get his fixed return. But for buying that security, he is not participating in the return. 2 of us can take higher risk. So we share that extra risk and extra return. Now, in the same product, there is safety for someone and return for someone. So we need to repackage risks through financial innovation to ensure that India's greed gets converted into risk appetite.
Fantastic. Converting greed into risk appetite. Nice idea for a paper.
Yeah.
Okay, next, question 4. I'll go quickly over this because there are several subparts. What are the threats to the rising India story? Inflation?
See, the biggest threat is complacency. As Indians, we can become complacent. We can't take growth for granted. We still have to do land reforms. We still have to do labor reforms. We still have to do judicial reforms. We still have to do farm reforms. We still have to support our Abhimanyu by freeing up from the Chakravyuh. With these constraints, we have achieved 8% growth rate. Without those constraints, we will go to 10, 11, 12%. And if I don't remove these constraints, maybe even 8 will not be sustainable. So I can't become complacent. I'll give you a very small story. Very few people would have heard the name of Dr. Subhas Mukhopadhyay. He was double doctorate in reproductive biology from University of Calcutta and University of Edinburgh. Unlike in those days where if you get an opportunity abroad, you don't come back, he came back and he was a professor in a medical college. And on the side, he helped create India's first test tube baby called Durga, aka Kanupriya Agarwal. When he presented his papers, everyone laughed at him. There was a committee of 4 people who, inquire on him and came to the conclusion that he is a fraud. And finally, he committed suicide. Durga or Kanupriya Agarwal came 67 days after world's first test tube baby by Dr. Robert Edwards in University of Edinburgh called Louisa Brown. He got Nobel Prize. And we ensured that Subhas Mukhopadhyay committed suicide. We would not have even known this story except years later, if I remember the name correctly, T.C. Anand Kumar. He created India's second test tube baby. He was recognized in those days as father of India's test tube baby. And when he went to Calcutta a few years later, Dr. Subhas Mukhopadhyay's colleague presented all the data and paper, and then he recognized that no, Dr. Subhas Mukhopadhyay should get that recognition, and that's how we know this story. As Indians, we are capable of converting our Nobel laureate into a suicide candidate. This complacency, this attitude, this behavior, that is our biggest risk. बाकी सब कुछ manage कर सकते हैं. But how do I fight with this? And this is manifested in many respects.
True. But then, there are these financial or economic risks. So inflation, higher inflation is a problem. High interest rates is a problem. But chalo, these are also, they move in cycles up and down, which is fine.
I am not worried because the Reserve Bank of India and the government both have done a commendable job.
No problem. Yeah.
And as long as they continue to do what they have been doing, I think inflation will become less of an issue. We are unlikely to see a movie like Kali Charan where the villain is fighting a food black marketer on the climax. वो दिन गए.
Energy. We are vulnerable globally on energy. 85% of energy we import. That makes us seriously vulnerable.
So on energy, we are vulnerable undoubtedly. And we must have plan A, B and C. The first plan is to enter into interdependency with oil producing nation. We provide you food security, you provide us oil. We provide you preferential access to our economy, you assure us oil security. The second thing will be to invest into renewable energy, especially solar and nuclear, where India has certain capabilities and advantages. Under Dr. Homi Bhabha, we invested for thorium-based reactor. My knowledge on science is limited, but he used, instead of uranium, thorium to support India's nuclear ambition. I think those are the kind of things we'll have to do. The third thing will be to keep options open for the future. For example, now there is a new technology, there's a new research being done in California where through nuclear fission, they are creating a laboratory sun. This is almost akin to that Spider-Man movie where Dr. Octopus was trying to create sun. Now, if that technology is successful, then we should lay a claim to get that. Gautam, under Montreal Accord, the rich nation provided money as well as technology to phase out ozone depleting gases. On a per capita basis, India is the lowest carbon emitter in the world. We need a New Delhi Accord whereby the rich nations who have polluted world far more on a per capita basis provides us money and the technology so that we can remain lowest per capita carbon emitter in the world. So securing oil, gas, leveraging nuclear and solar and other indigenous resources, and also creating a New Delhi Accord whereby I can leverage rich people, rich countries, just like Montreal Accord, will be probably providing us some security.
Related to energy is critical minerals. Critical minerals is the new energy. And here too, we are lacking in we don't have critical minerals. Although now I think India is aggressively going out and getting it. Critical minerals will determine several things. They are the future materials. How should India negotiate this?
So one, we have to prospect our own land. if we hear some of the industrialists, they do complain that we have resources, but we are not able to mine it. Second, we are sitting on $700 billion reserve. It's fourth highest in the world. We have now more FX reserves than our external debt. Can we put some of that reserves in creating a sovereign fund which will go and secure those critical minerals? We have a fairly, what should I say, we have a fairly long runway of imports of those critical minerals. We know we are going to buy them, we are going to need them. Might as well put some money and secure the supply by buying out mines.
Something like ONGC Videsh, what it does
But
to
on
oil
a
and gas.
much more successful basis, much more commercial basis.
So we can have some company.
Absolutely. There will be so many African nations who will be happy to welcome Indian capital and Indian technology to prospect their mines.
Intellectual property infrastructure. Now, we talked about AI, we talked about semiconductors. All these, the backbone which protects Abhimanyu, to use your analogy, is intellectual property. That's his kavach. If you tear out his kavach, then all that he creates goes to waste and there is no incentive left. We are still weak in our intellectual property protections. How should we fix this?
First, strengthen our own patent office. The amount of time it takes to give away patents is fairly long and fairly cumbersome. This is what I have heard. I don't know whether it's true or not, but many a times when a Western company files a patent in their home country, China copies that and puts that into their patent office in Chinese language. And when those companies go to China for asking patent, they said, oh, we also have a patent similar to this. Now, whether it's right, wrong, true, false, I don't know, but this is what I have heard. Now, this shows that the IPR rights one need to protect. And unless until we have a modern patent office, how are we going to protect it? If you see some of the patent applications, like that patent might be for this glass and water, but they try to cover everything around it. The patent will be for this one glass and water, but there will be 100 other filings around it so that no one can copy it. Now, we need to have modern patent office. The second thing is, how do we push ideas into commercial? As I mentioned, my wife is a doctorate from IIT Bombay. In her lab, I have met so many people who were working on so many innovative things. But how many of those ideas are coming to fruition? There is a need to build a pipeline between industry and the research which is going on. I'm sure if that pipeline is smooth, there will be a lot of IPR rights.
They talk about industry, university and government policy. These three, this triangle has to work together and support one another rather than being hostile to each other. And here I would put the blame on the government. And maybe not the government, but the bureaucracy.
The patent office has to be modern. As simple as that.
How do you see unemployment and inequality as a threat?
So for a nation like India with world's largest population, undoubtedly these are the two biggest risks. We need to provide employment, worthy employment to our citizens. And we have the youngest population. And we also have to ensure that they have equality of chances. In an unequal society, sustainability of growth will always be questioned. Now, how do we achieve it? First 50, 60 years of our independence, we were more focused on cutting the cake equitably. Everyone got small pieces or crumbs. Now we have grown the cake. And hopefully we'll be able to divide it unequally, and yet the last person will get a bigger piece. I think what we have done in terms of providing basic education, healthcare, food, that has given us some time. But now we must focus on skilling educating to ensure that our youth can get employment in any part of the world. The Western world has excess capital. They come to India and advise us, please open your country for foreign direct investment. We'll bring our money and we will create growth for you. We have excess labor. We should go in to those foreign countries and say, please open up your labor market. I have excess labor. I'll provide you labor. You have shortage of truck drivers. You have shortage of watchmen.
Medical
You have
professionals.
shortage of medical professionals. You need chef. You need electrician, plumber, welder. We'll provide, and we will take them back, give them long-term work visa, like it is happening in Middle East. Indian labor went and built Middle East. They can come and build your country also. So we need to open up our negotiation in a manner where our youth gets opportunity in all over the world.
Finally, domestic politics as a risk.
Undoubtedly, we have seen in a country like Venezuela, which had 90% plus power coming from hydro, so cheap as well as renewable, and which was sitting on more oil than the Saudi Arabia. When the good time in oil was there, they just wasted the resources, and when the bad time in oil came, the whole country collapsed. Undoubtedly, politics matter for a country's progress. And even in India, we have seen that there are 6 or 8 or 10 states which are doing far better than rest of the state. You can give credit to entrepreneurship, you can give credit to many other things. But at the end of the day, the leadership makes a difference. The leadership brings rule of law, which attracts capital, which builds infrastructure, which creates growth opportunity. So I hope and sincerely pray that we get appropriate leadership like we got post 1990.
How do we, what kind of incentives are needed for politics to come together on certain issues such as growth, jobs, inequality, etc.? Somehow the narrative and the political fights are on absolutely opposing, like in the previous discussion that you mentioned. How would you react to reservation in the private sector to remove inequality? You can argue it's a valid way to do it, but is that going to take India forward?
So we have to see, like for example, in medical, we had a lot of reservations. Now, by creating enough medical supply, there is no need for reservation. Or even with reservation, there's so much of supply that everyone's needs are met. I think we have seen keeping reservation for last 75 years has had limited benefits. But creating this supply has immense benefit. We should be focused on creating opportunities so that
Expanding the cake.
make the cake so big that no one will care for reservation.
I'm talking about, let us say, tomorrow you need to have half of your fund managers from a reservation quota. How would you deliver?
We have seen in South Africa when they tried to implement that kind of policies where you had to compulsorily recruit blacks in certain positions or in certain offices, it ended up derailing South Africa's growth. So our answer is not compulsory reservations. Our answer is expanding opportunities so that no one demands reservation. Our answer is in providing that skills, providing that necessary education so that everyone becomes worthy to demand a job or to do a job. Is there a need for supporting people at the bottom of pyramid? Answer is undoubtedly yes. I myself have studied on government scholarships. If they had not given me scholarship, I would have never reached there. So we need to support people at the bottom of pyramid like me, and that's why I'm sitting over here. But at the same time, if merit is ignored, it will have its own consequences. Our job is to create so much opportunity that there's no need for reservation.
You should join politics soon. Okay, sixth question.
In politics, they'll need a reservation for people like me, otherwise we'll be thrown out immediately.
So, how can households benefit from the Rising India story? Two specific questions. One is, what should current investors do? Sell or stay?
If you are an investor, undoubtedly stay. Stay invested, but with moderated return expectation. Be ready to face volatility. क्रिकेट खेल रहे हैं तो यॉर्कर भी आ सकता है, बाउंसर भी आ सकता है. पिच नहीं छोड़ेंगे तब तक आप रन बनाते रहेंगे और जीतने की उम्मीद रहेगी. द सेकंड थिंग टू एवरेज इंडियन, I just want to give example of someone from Delhi. When I was working in Axis Bank, a friend of mine was here as a branch head, and I was telling everyone, please start SIP, SIP, SIP. So he said, I have done SIP for myself. So I said, start for your driver, start for your maid, and he started one SIP for his driver. He was posted in Delhi for about 54 months, so 2,000 rupee a month, 1,08,000 got invested. Then he moved to Mumbai, the driver remained over here, and that money remained invested. Some time ago, there was a marriage in the driver's family, so he invited my friend and also requested if those money can be redeemed. That money had grown 3-4 times. And more importantly, he said this money will reach you in 3 days. Now for driver, it was an unbelievable experience कि 3 दिन में पैसा मिल जाएगा and इतना ज़्यादा मिल जाएगा. He could get his daughter married without borrowing and in a manner which was quite good. This is the example of participating in Rising India. And as Indians, we save enough, but investment करने में गड़बड़ करते हैं. FY21 to FY23, equity markets have delivered fantastic return. How much money we got in mutual fund? Only 4 lakh crore. How much money went directly into stock market? Only 2 lakh crore. And how much money was kept in currency notes at home? 9 lakh crore. Double that of mutual fund, 4 times that of equity investment. 9 लाख करोड़ तो डिप्रिशिएटिंग एसेट है. महंगाई उसको दीमक की तरह खा जाएगी. बट पीपल केप्ट मनी इन कैश. 93% of our savings allocation between FY21 to FY23 in financial sector happened for instruments which either give no real return or marginally positive real return. Bank deposits, insurance, pension funds, currency notes, small savings. Only 7% was invested for real return. Indian wealthy कैसे बनेंगे? And education is not the answer for financial awareness. India's most educated state is Kerala. Every year Kerala spends more money on buying lottery than they put in mutual funds or equity investment. भैया लॉटरी का तो धंधा तब चलेगा जब लॉटरी बायर नुकसान करेगा और लॉटरी सेलर पैसा बनाएगा, नहीं तो वो बंद कर देगा. इतनी सिंपल सी बात इंडिया's most educated state is unable to understand for decades. So we need financial awareness and education among Indians at large. Greed को risk appetite में convert करे. They become disciplined investor and they participate in India growth story. डायरेक्ट स्टॉक में खरीदना है, म्यूचुअल फंड के जरिए करना है, जहाँ पे भी करिए. बट 93% ऑफ योर पोर्टफोलियो शुड बी इन रियल रिटर्न प्रोडक्ट. बाकी 7% नॉन रियल रिटर्न प्रोडक्ट है, चलेगा. द रेशो हैज टू रिवर्स.
But you know something, Nilesh, the last 3 to 5 years has also increased the number of investors who are doing SIPs or coming into the markets for what you are describing as real returns. And I think it is this experiential knowledge that will be discussed over dinner tables, that will be discussed in restaurants, that will be discussed among colleagues at a party, picnic, school, meetings, etc. That will finally give that push that there is a logic. Yes, there is a risk. And you have seen the good times so far, but
Yes.
there could be a bad, like market is down today.
Yeah.
And this, I think this experiential factors where a person, like the way it has happened with the UPI, or the way it has happened with Jan Dhan Yojana. I think that experiential awareness will compound the knowledge awareness that will come. Fine, because, okay, so between us, because of where I came from, I couldn't afford to lose money. I didn't have the stomach for risk. Intellectually, I launched that magazine.
Yeah.
I'm telling the whole world, these are the returns, 16% CAGR, 18% CAGR, compare it with real, PPF versus, I know all the products, I have it all here.
Yeah.
I don't have it in my stomach. I didn't have the stomach for risk. Luckily, my wife, as you know, is a finance person.
Say, like you, for me also, my wife is smarter than me.
So all I did was that, here is the money. Don't tell me what you're doing with it. Just do it. I don't want to know.
Yeah.
Now, after several years, I'm beginning to, generally take a peek at what it looks like. And I'm now now I have experiential knowledge.
Yes.
And not just intellectual knowledge. I have experiential knowledge in engaging and understanding investments.
Money is all about emotions and not about rationality. लोग कई बार कहते हैं कि we are in the business of managing money. But in Templeton days, I learned that I am in the business of managing people's trust and confidence. पैसा तो आता रहेगा, जाता रहेगा, रिटर्न आज पॉजिटिव है, कल नेगेटिव भी हो सकता है. बट जब तक मैं आपका भरोसा रखूँगा, तब तक वो पैसा मेरे पास ही रहेगा. एंड एक बार मेरे पास पैसा लॉन्ग टर्म के लिए रह गया, तो राइजिंग टाइड ऑफ इंडिया विल मेक मनी फॉर एवरीवन.
SIP book is now
Absolutely.
It's larger than the FII book. So when they decide to exit, markets nothing happens to market.
30 साल की मेहनत है और 30 साल लगेंगे इसमें.
Okay, last question. What is your philosophical relationship with money? What is money? How do you define money? Is it wealth? Is it notes? Is it digital? What is money?
So, as you mentioned, my starting days were bad and we were desperately seeking financial security. So there was a stage where for me, money was something which I had to earn enough so that I don't go back to my childhood days. I can ensure that my family does not have to live through what I had left. Fortunately, with God's grace, those days came quite sooner. After a while, I realized that I have reached here because so many people supported me, so many people blessed me. Without that school principal who gave me scholarship, I would not have studied. Without my firm of chartered accountant who gave me 5 times more money than my stipend, I would not have pursued CS course. Without that college professor who gave me scholarship, I may not have pursued my college degree. So I reached here because so many people supported me. And this was now my time to give back. Again, by God's grace, I have enough money where not only I ensure that my family is secure, but I can give back to the society. So very recently, I went to my alma mater and started Shah and Nair Endowment Fund. I have been supporting one NGO called Parivar, which does work. I've been trying to give back to the society. The definition of money has changed over a period of time. And finally, someone asked me, like, why are you running from 9 o'clock in the morning till 12 o'clock in the night? If you manage your own money, you will make far more money. Why are you running so hard? Why are you working so hard? And then I said, like, when I was young, I studied this Gujarati poem. Gamtu male to gunje na bhariye, gamta no kariye gulal. If you get something, then don't pocket it. You spread it. God has been kind to give me certain skills of managing money. If I manage for my money, maybe I'll make more money than what I'm making today. But then I won't be able to impact so many people's life. Today, the biggest thing for me which matters is when I'm standing with my family somewhere and someone recognizes and blesses me saying that, Nilesh bhai, अच्छा काम कर रहे हो आप. That blessing is the most important thing for me. Money to me now is blessing. पैसा आ रहा है, so it is important, but it should be blessed money.
Lovely thought. I'll leave you with one line by Sri Aurobindo, and maybe you can discuss it and maybe we can talk about it later on the definition of money, on what money is. He says, money is the visible sign of a universal force. I leave you with that thought.
Thank you. That's such a nice
Thank you
thought.
for joining us at the Rising India podcast.
Thank you.
We will be back. This was a great conversation. We will be back again. Until then, namaste.